Okay. So from this point, our variance will be adverse variance because it's a cost variance. We plan to spend $3 and we end up spending 3.2. So it's an adverse variance. Adverse variance of how much? 3 minus 3.2 multiplied by 500. This gives us 500. 500 adverse. That's our material price variance. Now, our material usage variance. Usage, we are looking at the quantity, right? So we have our standard usage minus our actual usage, multiply our standard price. What's our standard usage? Now, we have a standard usage that we have to trace to the actual production. Always remember that. That's a trick. Actual usage always go with actual production. Our standard usage is 2 kg. Right? What's the actual production? 1,000 units. This is our standard usage. So this will give us how much? 2,000 minus what's our actual usage? Actual usage is 2,500. Okay, and our standard price remains $3. Put the dollar sign, please. Don't forget. This ignoring some of the signs because of calculation, but when you're calculating this, always remember to state the formula in full. Don't abbreviate. This is just for tutorial purpose. Please don't abbreviate. Spell the word in full, standard usage minus actual usage multiplied by standard price. Okay, don't abbreviate. And always put the dollar sign. When you're dealing with kg, put the kg sign. I'm only doing this for tutorial purposes. Thank you. So now, what our variance will be? Let's look at this variance critically. Our standard usage is 2,000, and our actual usage is 2,500. So we plan to use 2,000 quantity of so much material, and we end up use 2,500. It's an adverse. So we have a negative variance, adverse variance, which is how much? 500. 500, when we bring in the dollar sign, we quantify it into monetary terms, multiply by 3. This will give us how much? 1,500. 1,500 adverse variance. The material usage variance. This is just our basic variance for management accounting. Now, let's move to our advanced variance calculation, which is the planning and operation. Remember, I told you from this material price variance, this variance can be divided into 2, planning, operation. Good. Also, this variance can be divided into 2, planning, operations. So now let's look at our planning variance. Material price planning variance. In our earlier definition, I told you that planning variance is compared to things. I gave you that diagram, right? Let me take you back to this diagram. Sorry. Remember this? When I said standard, revised, actual. So planning is comparing standard and revised. Whereas operation is comparing revised to actual. With this in our mind, keep this in mind, and we have the figures already, and let's move to our calculation now. Material price planning variance. So standard price minus revised standard price multiplied by revised quantity. Remember, I told you I will be going with the new examiner's approach. Standard price remains $3 minus revised standard price is $3.5. Don't forget. Multiply by revised quantity, 2,800. 2,800, we got this from. Come back to the question. The question says it should have been 2.8 kg. Multiply this by the actual production of 1,000. That gives 2,800. So what this variance tells us? This variance tells us that our standard is 3 and our revised is 3.5. So 3 minus 3.5, this automatically gives us an adverse variance. These variances are cost variance. Cost variance, when the actual is greater than the budget, is an adverse. But when the budget or standard is greater than the actual, it's a favorable. Keep that in mind, that cost variance. Okay? So multiply by 2,800. So we have here, our variance here will be 1,400 adverse. Good. Now, what's our material price operational variance? Let's do the price variances and we'll move to the usage variances. Material price operational variances. Material price operational variances here means we are comparing now our revised standard price, okay, our revised standard price minus actual price multiplied by. Now, what are we multiplying by? Remember the formula. Material price operational variance. Revised standard price minus actual price multiplied by actual quantity. All right, actual quantity. So, what's our revised standard price for this question? Is 3.5 minus, what's our actual price? 3.2, thank you. 3.2. Actual quantity, 2,500, very good. And this gives what? How do we look at the variance? Before getting to the answer, we should be able to tell which variance is this, whether it's a favorable variance or adverse variance. From it, we can see our revised price, our price is 3.5. Okay? And our actual price 3.2, less. So our standard is greater than the actual. So it's a favorable variance. So it's 3.5 minus 3.2 multiplied by 2,500. This gives 750. 750 favorable. Any question? We are done with planning variance. Let's move to not planning, sorry. We're done with price variances. Move to the usage variances, which is material usage. Material usage planning variance. Material usage planning variance. How do we get this? We do our standard usage minus our actual usage. No, planning. Sorry. Standard usage minus revised usage. Revised standard usage multiplied by standard price. So what's our standard usage? Our standard usage is 2,000 minus revised standard usage is 2,800 multiplied by standard price, which is $3. So what will be our variance here? From the look of things, our variance is adverse variance. Our usage we plan to in 2,000, and now it's how much? 2,800, and now we have 800 multiplied by 3 gives us how much? 2,400. Adverse. So we have as a material usage planning variance. Okay. Now we'll move to our material usage operational variance. MUOP. Material usage operational variance. We bring in our revised standard usage minus actual. Compare now revised to actual usage. Multiply by what? Revised standard price. Okay. Our revised usage becomes 2,800 minus our actual usage was 2,500, and our revised standard price remained 3.5. What's the variance here? The variance here is favorable variance. 2,800 as compared to the actual 2,500 is favorable of 300 at 3.5. This gives us 1050, 1,050 favorable. So this is our variance or material usage operational variance. Okay, so what happened here? Now we need to analyze these variances. These 4 variances. Let's forget about the basic variance. Let's forget about this material price variance and material usage variance. Okay, now let's analyze these 4 variances: material price planning variance, material usage, material price operational variance, and material price, material usage planning variance, and material usage operational variance. So let's analyze these variances. Okay, so in analyzing variance, let me bring the planning variance together and operational variance together. So planning variances, and we have our operational variances. Our planning variances, the first planning variance, we have material price planning variance 1,400 adverse. 1,400 adverse. Okay, what's the next one? What's the next one? Material usage planning variance 2,400. Material usage plan 2,400. Adverse as well. Yes, adverse variance. So these are material, let me name them. Material price planning variance, material usage planning variance. So bringing the planning variances together. So total gives us 3,800 adverse. We name this as planning error. Planning error. Manager should not be held responsible for planning variances, the planning error. Okay? So we'll not blame managers. We'll not hold managers responsible for it. Now we move to the operational variances. Operational variances. And we have first one, material price operational variance. We have a material price operational variance. And what is that? How much is that? Material price is 750 favorable. 750 favorable. And the last one, we have material usage operational variance. Material usage operational variance. How much is that? 1,050 favorable. Total 1,050 plus 750 gives us 1,800. 1,800 favorable. So this we can say, we can use this to determine, to help managers responsible for operational variance. Okay, managers have done well. They are able to save the company in total 1,800. Thank you so much for your attention. Now we have another question, which is our question 2. Question 2 says, this is for labor. The first question was for material. Now this is for labor. A co-estimate that each unit will take 5 hours of labor and labor will be paid $10 per hour. This is our standard information. Okay. Actual production was 2,000 units. Very important. Which consume. So we spent 12,000 labor hours to produce 2,000 units. And those 12,000 labor hours was paid $13,000. Good, that's actual information. Now, what happened? They revised. It was then realized that the standard should have being each unit taking 6.5 hours at 12.5. That's a revised. Okay. Sound good? Okay. So let's see how we can deal with this question. Example 2. So we are asked to calculate labor rate and labor efficiency variance. Labor rate and efficiency are basic variance as well from our management accounting. We bring those variances into play. So if we want to do labor rate variance, we said standard rate. We are comparing that to actual rate multiplied by actual hours. Get it? Now, and so let's look for our information. What's our standard rate and actual rate? Look at the question. ECO estimated that each unit will take 5 hours. Each unit will take 5 hours of labor, and labor will be paid 10. This is our standard rate. This is our standard hour. But this standard hour, don't forget, standard hour will be multiplied by what? Actual production. Actual production. Don't forget that. Always standard hours multiplied by actual production. Very important. Okay. So our standard rate is 10. Standard rate is 10 minus what's our actual rate? Our actual results. We said we use 12,000 hours, right? And these 12,000 hours cost us $13,000. So the $13,000 is what we spent for the 12,000 hours. So how much did we actually spend for 1 hour? So how much you spend for 1 hour? So it's 30,000. Bring in a dollar, 13,000 divided by 12,000 hours. What will that be? 13,000 divided by 12,000. Sorry. The question, it's not actually 12,000, it's 1,200. Ignore the 10, please. It's typographical error. It's 1,200. Okay. So we'll do our $13,000 divided by 1,200. Okay. And that will give us 10.8. 10.8. 10.8. And what's our actual hour? Our actual hour is how much? 1,200. Okay, clear? So I'll go over this. Our standard rate is 10, as per the question. Our actual rate, we are given the total hours worked, which is 1,200, and the money paid for the 1,200 is 13,000. So now 13,000 divided by 1,200, which gives us how much? 10.8. We paid for $1, 10.8333 is 10.8. Multiplied by the actual hour, 1,200. So what's our variance? Before we go to the variance answer, which type of variance is this? It's an adverse variance, labor rate, cost variance. We said we're going to pay $10, but we paid $10.8. We pay more than what we said we're going to pay. So that is 0.8 at 1,200. So we have 960. 960 is our adverse variance. Sound good? Okay. So we've done our labor rate variance. Now we'll move to labor efficiency variance. efficiency, look at hours worked. Okay, so compare our standard hour minus actual hours multiplied by standard rate. What's our standard hour? We're told the standard hour is 5 hours. Come to the question here. 5 hours production, number of actual production. Okay. So actual production also should be. So let's calculate this. And 5. So what's our actual 5 hours of labor? That's our actual hours, 5 hours. Okay. So 5 hours, and what's our actual production? Actual production was 2,000. And what's our actual hour? If we get our actual hour ready to be 1,200. And our actual is 5 times 200, which is 1,000. 5 times 5 hours actual production, 200. This gives us 1,000. Standard rates is $10 per hour. Oh yes, thank you for the memory. Sorry, the question also, the actual production, we have more zeros. Sorry, typographical error is to the 200, and this should be 1,200 hours. Okay, thanks. So we are okay now. Good. Thanks for the correction. Okay, so that's it. So now look at the variance. We have our standard hour of 1,000 and our actual hour of 1,200. So how do we see this variance? Favorable or adverse? Adverse variance of how much? 200. Advance of 200 multiplied by 10. This gives you 2,000. This gives you 2,000. Adverse. Variance is adverse 2,000. So we've done part A, the labor rates variance and labor efficiency variance. Now we are bringing this labor rate and labor efficiency into planning and operational. Okay. So let's do the labor rates planning variance. Labor rates, sorry, planning variance. Planning, we are doing the standard rate minus revised standard rate multiplied by revised hours. Remember, I told you I will not use actual hour. Both of them are correct, I can say, but the new examiner is using revised hour instead of actual hour. So I will be focusing on revised hours. What's our revised? Say, it was then realized that the standard should have been each unit taking 6.5 hours at 12. So our standard rate is 10 minus our revised standard rate is 12.5 hours multiplied by our revised hour, which we have to calculate now, is 6.5 hours at actual production of how much? 200. So this is gives how much? 6.5 times 200, 1,300. So our revised hour is 1,200. So how do we see this variance? Favorable or adverse? Adverse variance, very good. So we plan to pay 10 and we revised it, we pay 10.5. So we have this so much multiplied by the quantity hours, 3250. 3250. This is adverse variance. Adverse variance. Our labor rate planning variance. So now let's look at our labor rate operational variance. Labor rate operational variance. Now, this labor rate planning is looking at standard and revised. Operational is looking at revised standard rates minus actual rates multiplied by actual hours. Yes? So now what do we do to this? What's our revised standard rate? Our revised standard rate is said is $12.5 minus what's our actual rate? Our actual rate was calculated earlier on. What did we get for actual rates? Actual rate was 10.5, 10.8, sorry. 10.8. And what's our actual? What's our actual hour? Sorry. Our actual hours now would be 1,200. 1,200. So what did we result at? 12.5 minus 10.8 multiplied by 1,200. And this variance, remember, is going to be what? Very good, favorable variance. We revised to pay 12.5, or we pay 10.8. So it's a favorable variance. Get it? There is on. So favorable of how much? This will give 12.5 minus 10.8. This so much multiplied by 1,200. This will be 2,040. Favorable. Okay. Favorable. Yeah. So now we go to labor usage. We've done labor rates, planning variance, labor rates, operational variance. Now let's deal with labor usage planning and labor usage operational. Labor usage planning variance. We are dealing with labor efficiency. Sorry, not usage. Labor efficiency. So labor efficiency planning variance. What's our labor efficiency planning? Remember this word planning, looking at standard and revised. So we have standard hour minus our revised standard hour multiplied by what? Standard hour, revised standard hour, by what? Yeah, standard rate. Okay. What's our standard hour? Now our standard hour, we said it's by 1,000. Yeah, thank you. 1,000 hours. And what's our revised hour? Revised hour, we said it's 6. Revised hour, we said it's 6.5. 6.5 multiplied by one actual production 200. This gives us how much? 1,300. Thank you. 1,300 multiplied by standard rate of 10. So 300 at 10 gives how much? 3,000. 3,000 adverse. Thank you. Adverse variance. We done? 1 second. Welcome back. So that gives us 3,000. Okay, that's our labor efficiency planning variance. So now look at our labor efficiency operational variance. So compare the revised standard hours minus actual hours. Actual hours multiply by what? Yeah, revised standard rate. So our revised hours, we have 1,300. Our actual hours, we have 1,200. And our revised rate, we have 12.5. And this variance will be what? Favorable here, not positive, favorable. We don't have positive or negative variance, favorable or adverse variance, okay? Favorable variance. So that will be 1,000, 1,300 minus 1,200 gives you 100, multiplied by 12.5. This will gives you 1,250. 1,250. Favorable. So this is the solution for this labor width and labor efficiency variance, planning and operational variance for labor. Okay, so same thing for material. We can put all the planning variances together and put all the operational variances together. And the operational variances will be looked on and see whether managers did well or not. Okay. Okay, so we're making progress. We have one more question here from this. Let's see what we can get from this question. This is SCCA past question, December 2009, secure net. What's the requirement? Calculate material price and usage variance. Okay, this we can do. Analyze the above total variance into component parts for planning and operational variances in as much details as the information allows. Take note, in as much. So you have to know that we have to do planning for variances of planning. For. So in as much detail as information allows. Okay. And remember, I told you about variance. This is a professional paper. What you do, you have to analyze, assess the performance of the production manager. Take note, the production manager. So if we are assessing, before going, if we are assessing performance of production manager, any variance relating to price, the production manager will not be responsible because price is not, except we are told in the question that the production manager also take part in buying his material from his supplier, except other than that, then the production manager is responsible of the production at the factory. He's not responsible for buying material. So price variance will not be attributable to the production manager. Take note of that. Right? Okay. So let's see how the question goes. SecureNet Limited manufactures security cards that restrict access to government-owned buildings around the world. Okay. The standard cost for the plastic that goes into, you see, the standard cost, take note, the standard cost of the plastic that goes into making a card is 4. So the standard cost is 4 per kg. And each card uses 40 grams per kg. So now, let's take our information. With the table I gave you, remember, the lines I gave you, let's take our information. So we have standard cost. We have actual cost. Okay, and I will do here my revised. Revise the information. What happened next? So this makes life easy. Okay, so we have the standard cost to be 4 per kg. And each card uses 40 grams. Each card uses 40 grams. Not kilogram, 40 grams. But the cost is in kg per kg per kilogram. First step. There's a conversion here. Pay attention to that. We continue. Okay. 40 grams of plastic after an allowance for waste. Okay. Greater allowance for waste. Of course, we are thinking about which standard? Either attainable standard or current standard. We have an allowances for waste. In November, 100,000 cars were produced. Actual production. Very important. Actual production. Were produced and sold by SN. And this was well above the budgeted sales of 6,000. So we budgeted 60,000 cards. That's our budget. But actual production was 1,000. 600,000. Very important information. Okay. We'll keep that one for now. Actual production. We'll use actual production. You know, actual production go with standard grams per production. Standard goes per production. Okay. We'll keep that. Now, the actual. The actual cost of the plastic was 5.25. So actual result now, we come to actual table. Okay. 5 actual is 5.25. This is our actual figure per kg. And the production manager in bracket, who is responsible for all buying and production issues, then the price variance will be attributed. Remember, I told you, except we are told that the production manager is responsible for buying. If not responsible for buying, price variances will not be attributable to the production manager. It's the responsibility of the purchasing manager. But in this question, the production manager is held responsible, because that's why we are told who is responsible for all buying and production issues. He was asked to explain the increase. See, he said, world oil price increases pushed up plastic price by 20% compared to our budget. This is our revised price compared to our budget. I decided to use a different supplier. So what oil price increase pushed up plastic price by 20%. What was the plastic price before? The original budget was $4 per kg. This was the original standard. Now it moved by 20%. So what will be the revised? Moved by 20%. What will be the revised? Very good, 20%. So that gives how much? 4.8. Very good, 4.8. 4.8. So I'll get this one, 4.8. The original budgeted price was $4 and it moved by 20%. So multiplied by 1.2 equals to 4.8. Now we can do the elementary. 20 divided by 100 times 4. All of these plus 4. Because this is the increase. Okay, this is the increase. Pushed up the price. So our revised price now is 4.8. Get? Okay, we move on. So we got the revised price. We move on. I know we have overspent, but not all the increase in plastic prices is my fault. This is the manager speaking, the production manager. Now, the next paragraph. The actual usage of plastic per card was 35 grams. So our actual usage was how much? 35 grams. So our actual usage. 35 grams. Another important information per card. And again, the production manager had an explanation. Okay? The world standard size for security card increased by how much? 5%. Due to a change in the card reader. So this is our revised, thank you, revised standard usage. Increased by 5%. So what was our original? 40 grams. So 40 grams increased by 5%. We do the same calculation here. What do we get? We'll have 42 grams. Very good. 42 grams. Okay. So 42 grams. This is our information. We put the information all together. Our new suppliers provide a much better quality of plastic, and this helps to cut down on the waste. SN operates a just-in-time system and hence carries very little inventory, just in time. GIT just in time. So you carry any company that operates just in time doesn't have room for inventory. You save storage cost. We'll talk about that in some lectures. Okay, so this is what we get, and now we are asked to calculate the variances. So we calculate these variances now? Okay, so let's look at our first variance. Calculate the material price and usage variances. What's our material price variance? Don't forget, please, the formula very important. I'm repeating, don't abbreviate. I'm doing this for tutorial purpose. Don't abbreviate. Okay, so material price variance. Said standard price minus actual price multiplied by actual quantity. So what's our standard price? Standard price 4, actual price 5.2. Standard price 4, actual price 5.25, actual quantity 35 grams. And to convert grams to kilograms is how much? 35 divided by 1,000. So let me do the conversion here first before we do the calculation. To convert this one is 35 divided by 1,000, not 100, 1,000. Okay, this is the grams. But we know we do grams to what? Actual production. And what's our actual production? 100,000. And same for this, it will be 40 divided by 1,000, converting grams to kilograms, multiplied by actual production, 100,000. And same for this, 42 divided by 1,000 times actual production, 100,000. Okay, so let's get the answer. So 35 divided by 1,000 times 100,000, 3,500. Thank you. 3,500 is our actual production. So how do we assess this variance? What do we see to this variance? We budget is 4 and actual is 5.25. Yes, adverse variance. So adverse variance of how much? 4 minus 5.25. This gives you multiplied by 3,500. So our material price variance for this question is 4,375. 4,375 adverse. Very good. Okay. So we have our material price variance, now material usage variance. So our material usage variance will be our standard usage minus actual usage multiplied by standard price. Our standard usage, remember, is 40 divided by 1,000 times 100,000, 4,000. 4,000. Our actual usage, 3,500. Standard price. What do we have for standard price? 4. Our standard price is 4. So what would be our variance here? Our variance here is favorable. Very good. Usage is 4,000. We actual usage, we actually use 3,500. So we have 500 variance, and in dollar term at 4 gives us 2,000. 2,000 favorable variance. Okay. So we are done with the basic variance. Now we move to the part B, question 2. Analyze the above total variances into component parts for planning and operational variances in as much details as the information allows. In as much details as the information allows. So our first variance we'll consider here is our material price planning variance. No change, the same thing. Material price planning variance. So with this one, we know we are looking at our standard price minus revised standard price multiplied by, let's use this again, revised quantity. Okay. our standard price 4 minus our revised standard price. We had a table already that we set. Our revised standard price 4.8. 4.8 multiply our standard, multiply by our revised quantity. What's the revised quantity? We have 44,200, 42 grams, 42 divided by 1,000 times 100,000 actual production gives us 4,200. So that will give us 4,200. Clear? How do we see this variance? Exactly. Adverse variance. So with prices 4, and now it's 4.8. So say 4 minus 4.8 multiplied by 4,200. This gives us 3,360. 3,360 adverse variance. So our material price, planning variance, adverse variance. Let's finish the price and we move to usage. So now we will take material price operational variance. Operational variance, now we compare the revised standard price minus the actual price multiplied by what? Perfect. Actual quantity. Okay. So now what is our revised standard price? Revised standard price 4.8 minus what's our actual price? Actual price, let's confirm. Actual price remains how much? 5.25. Okay, thank you. 5.25 multiplied by actual quantity. And actual quantity is how much? 3,500. 3,500. So what is amounted to? So we have 4.8 minus 5.25 gives us that amount multiplied by 3,500. 1,575. $1,575. Adverse or favorable? Thank you. Adverse. If you don't, excuse me, if you just leave your answer like this, ignoring adverse or favorable, your variance is wrong. It's not correct. The complete answer for variance you should justify, whether it's a favorable variance or an adverse variance. You should justify. You leave the answer just like this, you are wrong. You will not score the marks you're supposed to get. Oh, that is clear. So adverse. So we are done with planning variance. Now we move to operational variance. So we are done with price variance. Now we move to the usage variances. So now material usage planning variance. Material usage planning variance. Okay? Material usage planning variance. So now we say the planning. Always remember standard and revised. So standard usage minus revised standard usage multiplied by what? Okay. Thank you. Yeah. So standard usage minus revised standard usage multiplied by standard price. Okay. What's our standard usage? We go back to the question. What's our standard usage? Our standard usage is 4,000, and our revised is how much? 4,200. Okay. Our standard usage is 4,000, and our revised 4,200. Standard price 4. You confirm. Standard price 4. Yeah, $4 per kg. Is that clear? $4 per kg. So our standard price. Okay. So what do we have here? How do we see this variance? Adverse variance. Thank you. Adverse of how much? 200 at what? 4. So our variance will be 800 adverse. 800 adverse. So we bring in the standard usage of 4,000 minus revised standard usage of 4,200 multiplied standard price for. So now we look at a material usage operational variance. Material usage operational variance. So we say our revised standard usage minus our actual usage multiplied by our revised standard price. Our revised standard usage gives us 4,200. Our actual usage gives us 3,500, remember? And our revised standard price gives us how much? Let's confirm. From our table, this table is very important. Don't forget, always when you have planning and operational variance, do this table. Make life easy for you. So our revised price is 4.8. You can see from here, 4.8. So our revised price, 4.8. It's very important. Okay? So $4.8. Now, this variance is what? Favorable variance. Thank you. Our revised standard usage 4,200, and our actual usage we use less, 3,500. So 4,200 minus 3,500 gives us this 700. Our variance of 4.8. This gives us 3,360. 3,360. Favorable. So we are done. Say in as much information as the question allows. So we've got this one. So now we need to analyze our variances. We move to the next part C to analyze the performance of the manager, production manager. Remember, production manager is responsible of buying materials too, so he's responsible for all the price variance as well. But remember, we have to explain variances that are controllable. Controllable variances are what? The operational variances. For the planning variances, no, outside his control. Okay, that's why he said, "Not all is my fault." The man is wise; he know what he was saying. So, to analyze the managers, we don't look at this material price variance and material usage variance, no basic variance. We don't consider them. So we look at the planning variance first. We look at planning variances and operational variances. So planning variances, we have a material price planning variance, which we have 3,360 adverse. And we have here for operational variance, we have material price operational variance, which is 1,575 adverse. Okay, so this table. Okay, and the next ones, the next set of variances, we have material price, material 517, okay. And we have material usage planning variance, which is 800 advance. So material usage planning variance, we have 800 adverse. And the last one, material usage operational variance, 3,360. Material usage operational variance, which is 3,360, favorable. So what's the total variances? What do we have now here? So for the planning is 3,360. Plus 800. 4160. 4160 advance. And 1,575 plus 3,360 gives us 4935. Oh, sorry. Sorry. This one of the variance is favorable and the other variance is adverse. So it's 3360 minus 1575 gives us 1785. 1785 favorable. Okay. So now we can use this to analyze. First of all, we have a plan. When you are analyzing this variance, we have to put in the variances figures. We have a total planning error of 4160 adverse. However, this variance is not the manager's responsibility. It's an external factor outside the control of the manager. You will see that from the question when we notice the oil price increase by 20%, 5% outside the control of the manager. Okay. However, the production manager, based on the variances calculated, we can say he has done a very good job. Has done a good job, able to save the company a favorable variance of 1785. So the operational variance should be attributable to the manager and not the planning variances. Okay. All right. So that said, then I think that's in this question. I think I have one more question. And if I have time, we can do that. One more question on planning and operational variance, and we are done. Okay. So one more question on that. Let me see. Okay. So let's look at this past question. This is okay, we have question 2. This is a past question, question 2. So let's see how we can break this question down. Always remember, when you want to do variance analysis, always remember that you need to make a table, make life easy for yourself. Make a table. Now, what's the requirement? Calculate the total labor rates and total labor efficiency variances for November based on the standard cost provided above. So the basic variance, 4 marks. So now I told you the formulas are very, very important. Stating the formula, you earn yourself a mark. Okay, and always remember to put the dollar sign. Always remember to put kg, if you use kg, grams. Always remember, I'm ignoring them here because it's a tutorial basis, and I know you understand. Okay, now let's look at this question. This secure net we just did was ECCA December 2005 was focused on material. Now this is looking at labor. Okay, then B, analyze the total labor rates and total labor efficiency variances into component parts for planning and operational variances in as much details as the information allows. The same requirements, right? But you know what to do now. Assess the performance of the production manager for the month of November. Can you do this? Can you attempt this? Okay, let's read the question. Truffle Co. makes high quality handmade chocolate truffles, which it sells to a local retailer. Make chocolate, sell to local retailer. All chocolates are made in batches of 16. Take note, all chocolates are made in batches of 16 to fit the standard box supplied by the retailer. The standard cost, so standard cost of labor for each batch is $6. And the standard labor time for each batch is half an hour. Half an hour, 0.5, 30 seconds. 0.5, 30 minutes, sorry, half an hour. So now, let's get our standard data. And I will have here my actual data. And I will have here my revised data. This is my first. By just doing this has helped me to understand the question. Okay. Now, my standard hour, half an hour, which is 0.5 hours. But my standard cost was straight. Take note. Let's go back to the question. Where I said the standard cost of labor for each batch is how much? $6. Okay, so now my standard cost now will be, my standard cost would be 6 divided by half an hour, 2.5. This will equal to how much? $12. My standard cost, $12. Okay, sorry. We continue. In November, Juvusco had projected production of 24,000 batches. Projected production. For this level, we don't consider projected. What do we consider? Actual production. Very important. Actual production was only how much? 2,500. Very important. Actual production. 2,500. I can put that down. Actual production. How much? 2,500. So actual production. Let me change the color. 2,500. This is my actual production. Okay. So we continue. Okay, actual production was only 2,500 batches. 12,000 labor hours were used to complete the work. So to make 2,500, we use how much? 12,000 labor hours. So our actual hours was 12,000. 12,000 hours. We are used to complete the work. And there was no idle time, okay? All workers were paid for their actual hours worked. The actual total labor cost for November was 136,800. November, 136,800. So the actual labor cost. So this is the actual labor cost for the entire 12,000. We paid 136,800. So how much did we pay per hour? 136,800, okay, divided by 12,000 hours produced. So we actually paid 11.4 per hour. So per hour, we paid 11.4. We all know how to get 11.4, right? 136,800 divided by 12,000, because the 12,000 hours was paid for 136,800. So how much was paid for 1 hour? 1 hour, $11.4. Clear? Okay. Now we make progress. So move on. So we've gotten our standard data and we've gotten our actual data. With what we've got already, we can do labor rate and labor efficiency variance with these two one. So we only need the revised for the planning and operational thing. You get? Now we move on. Information continues. Okay, the production manager at Tofroco has no input into the budgeting process. Okay, take note, has no input to the budgeting process. And the budgeting process, we have planning error. That the planning starts. That's the planning variance. That's no input. So automatically, I'm not held responsible by what he's saying. Okay, now at the end of October, the managing director decided to hold a meeting and offer staff the choice. I'm talking about revised. Offer staff the choice of either accepting a 5% pay cut or facing a certain number of redundancies. All staff subsequently agreed to a 5% pay cut with immediate effect. 5% pay cut affects what? Rate or hour? Rate. Very good. So our rate was how much? 12. And our 12 rate, we have to get 5% pay cut. So we have to reduce our 12 rate by 5%. So that will be our revised rate. Clear? It's either we accept 5% pay cut or we facing certain redundancies, but we all unanimously agree to a 5% pay cut. Is that clear? And 5% pay cut is affecting the standard, the revised rate. So the standard rate, the 5% pay cut should be applied to the standard rate of 12 for us to generate the revised standard rate. Make sense? So how much would that be? 5 over 100 multiplied by 12 minus 12 gives us how much? 11.4. So it will be 11.4. 11.4. This is our revised rate, 11.4. 5%. I can do this here. Is 5 over 100 times 12. This answer that we got here, minus 12. Which gives us this 4. Okay? And we continue. We are told that all staff subsequently agree to accept the 5% pay cut with immediate effect. Good news. At the same time, the retailer requested that the truffles be made slightly softer. Okay? These changes was implemented immediately and made the chocolate more difficult to shape. So they have bring some changes in the chocolate, made the chocolate more difficult to shape. Is that okay? When recipe changes, such as these are made, it takes time before the workers become used to working with this new ingredient mix, making the process 20% slower labor hour. Get this, let me go over this again. Interesting. At the same time, the retailer requested that the truffles be made slightly softer. Okay, make soft slightly. These changes was implemented immediately and made the chocolate more difficult to shape. Spend more time on the chocolate now. Spend more time because it's difficult. When recipe changes such as these are made, it takes time. Get it? It takes time before the workers become used to working with this new ingredient mix, making the process 20% slower for at least the first month of the new operation. Of course, of the first, because we have what we call learning curve. We'll get to that. The more you do something, the lesser the time takes. The more you do something, lesser time takes. So learning curve will make it easier. We start doing it. Now, at the immediate point, it's difficult to do. We are trying to know how to do it. It's difficult. But as we keep doing it, it will be easier and we spend less time. That's why for this first month. You get? So now, what is our actual deal? We are spending how much? 0.5 hours. Our standard, we are spending 0.5 hours, half an hour. Remember, half an hour, 0.5 hours. Now, we are going to be 20%. The time will be 20% slower. Slower means we're going to take now more hours in doing it, not less hours. More. We slow. I was doing something for 30 minutes. I'm fast. Now I'm going to do the same thing I was doing for 30 minutes. I'm going to do that same thing for 40 minutes, for 50 minutes, and so on. So I become slower, right? So now what would be the 20%, right? 20% of slower. So the same calculation go here. So it's 20 upon 100 multiplied by 0.5 plus 0.5. This will give me how much? So I'm spending now 0.6 hours. 20% slower. So I'm spending more time in making the same product I was doing because of the addition. 20% slower. Any question? Let's say, now let me do this calculation again. It is, you take 20, divide by how much? 100, multiply by, what are you comparing it to? 0.5, the basic standard. 0.5 hours. So this is the difference plus the 0.5. Okay, that's it. But if you are very okay with the calculation, if you are very okay with percentages, there is an easy way to do this. You don't need to go all of this. What you can do to just get this, how much is 0.5, 20% slower, multiplied by 1.2. This will give you the answer. If you are very comfortable with percentages, but if you are not, go this way, elementary. But if you are very fast, you just multiply by 1.2, gives you the answer 0.6. So our revised is 0.6. Okay, now we've got all the information we need. Okay, just calculate our variances now. We have all the information we need. Can you do this now with this information? Some are saying yes, 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 yes. Yeah. Okay, that's good. That's good. Which means you are making progress. Well done. Well done. Okay. So for those that are absent, they can watch the video later. So let's compute it together. Okay. Labor rate variance. labor rate variance equals to standard rate plus actual rate multiplied by actual hour. So what's our standard rate? Our standard rate 12. Standard rate 12 minus actual rate 11.4. Actual hour. What's our actual hour? 12,000. Yeah, 12,000. 12,000. This gives how much? 12 minus 11.4. All right, 12,000. 7,200. Adverse or favorable? Favorable, thank you. Favorable variance. Okay, that's labor rate. Now, labor efficiency variance. We look at our standard hour minus actual hour multiplied by standard rate. What's our standard hour? 0.5. So our standard hour, we do 0.5 at actual production. Actual production is how much? 2,500. How much this gives us? 0.5 times 2,500. This gives us 10 to 50. 10 to 50 minus actual hour, 12,000 times standard rates, 12. This gives us a what? Favorable or adverse? Very good. Adverse variance. Because our hours was 10 to 50, but we actually took 12,000 hours. Adverse variance. So 10 to 50 minus 12,000 multiplied by the rate of 12, 21,000. So it's 21,000 adverse. Any question? So we are done with the basic variances. We're done with A. B. So we'll do our labor. We are in B now. Labor rates planning variance. Labor rates planning variance planning. Standard rate minus revised standard rate multiplied by revised hour. So our standard rate is 12. Revised standard rate is 11.4. Revised hours. What's our revised hours? Our revised hour is 0.6, okay? Our revised hour is 0.6. So it's going to be 0.6 multiplied by actual production of 2,500. So 0.6 multiplied by 2,500. This gives 12,300. 12,300. So favorable or adverse? Favorable. Very good. 12, we plan to pay 12, but we end up paying 11.4. Right? Okay, 11.4. And this gives you this at 12,300. 7380. 7380. Favorable. Okay. Now let's finish with labor rate operational variance. Our labor rate operational variance, we have our revised standard rate minus actual rate multiplied by actual hour. Our revised standard rate is 11.4. Our actual rate is 11.4. Our actual hour is 12,000. Okay, what's our variance? Favorable or adverse? Absolutely zero. Our variance is zero. Very good. What we projected to pay is what exactly we pay. Zero. Nil. Well done. Well done. Zero. Okay, so we are done with rates. Now we move to now this. You can see the manager. What happened to the manager? It tells us a lot. This zero. What we budgeted to pay is what we pay. So meaning there was no payment for idle time. Employees work within their time limits. No extra work, no payment for idle time. Okay? Manager did well. Okay, now we are done with variance. Let's go to efficiency variance. So labor efficiency planning variance. So we say standard hour efficiency compare standard to revised. Revised standard hour, okay, multiply by standard rate. Standard hour is how much? We have got standard hour somewhere. 10 to 50, yeah. Okay. Standard hour 10 to 50 minus our revised standard hour. What's our revised standard hour? We said is 12,300. 12,300 multiplied by our standard rates. Our standard rates remain 12 unchanged, 12. So this gives us, what's the variance? Adverse variance of 10, 250 minus 12, 300 at 12, 26, 400, 24, 600, 10, 250 minus 12, 300 at 12. We have 24, 600. Adverse, right? Yeah, adverse. That's our labor efficiency planning variance. So now we have our labor efficiency operational variance. Labor efficiency operational variance. Revised standard hour minus actual hour. What? Actual rate. That's an revised. Sorry. Tired now. Revised standard rate. Okay, revised hour is 12,300. Actual hour 12,000 at what? 11.4. 11.4, which is 12,300 minus 12,000 multiplied by 11.4. 3420. 3420. This gives us favorable variance. Favorable variance. Any question? So we are done with this variance. And we have to analyze the variance now. The same analysis for the previous one continues. Okay. Yes. Okay, guys, please, if you have any question, you can leave your question. Thank you so much for a wonderful session. Hope to see you in the next lecture for material mix and material yield variance. Thank you all. Bye-bye.